wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Page 67. Today I'm going to start with a positive approach with reference to scientific method, objectivity, reliability, and value freedom. Within sociology, there are two main theoretical approaches to research and to understanding the social world. The earliest sociologists, such as Comte, developed the positivist approach, but for most of the history of the sociology, interpretivism has existed alongside positivism as an alternative approach. So, in this paragraph, we are told about the introduction of positivism. I mean, Comte was the first person, or the sociologist, who introduced this technique, and but most of the sociologists, they simply believe that alternative approach is always there, which is interpretivism. What is positivism? According to this approach, it is both possible and desirable to study social behavior using similar method to those used when studying the natural world. In other words, sociology can be like a science. We can examine this belief by identifying some of its key ideas, beginning with the idea that social systems are made up of structure that exist independently of individuals. Institutions represent behavior at the micro level. The big level are the large scale value level of the society. As individual, we experience social structure as forces beating down on us, pushing us to behave in certain ways and shaping our behavioral choices. Although we have a measure of choice in our daily lives, this is limited by social structure. For positivists, where social action is decided by structural forces, it makes sense to study the causes of behavior. This means looking at the structural forces that make people choose one action over another rather than studying the effects, the choice themselves. Social structure are seen as real, objective forces. People cannot stop these forces from acting on them. So let's explain. So first of all, for the positivist, we need to understand the very first thing, which is, according to positivist, we need to study sociology, our society, as a natural science. So the way we adopt to understand physics, chemistry, biology, or other kind of natural sciences, the same pattern, the same method should be adopted to study society. You know why? What is the reason behind that? Because positivists, they simply believe our society is sum up, are made up of different structural forces. So basically, according to positivists, we need to understand one thing. What we need to study society like natural sciences. Secondly, we need to understand our society is sum of it consists of different institutions, and we consider institutions as a structural forces. Second thing. The third thing is, uh, when we talk about the structures, institutions, it means we try to investigate society on a macro level. We got two levels to understanding. One is micro, second is macro. So according to positivist, we are supposed to consider society as macro level, because we are examine the different institutions. When we talk about the institutions, if we are able to understand the structure of institutions, then we are able to know, what we have to understand the behavior of the people. See that, for example, if I give you an example, police is an law enforcement agency or an institutions. I like to smoke, for instance, I like to drink, I like to dance. It is not possible for me to do the same stuff on the roads. You know why? Because I have some sort of fear, because I am not at liberty to do the same stuff on roads while there is a traffic on the road. So there is a fear of fine, there is a fear of punishment, imprisonment. There are so many things which are involved when I simply break the law. So a structure, an institution like police, I have a sort of fear which strict me, which is unseen sometimes, pressurizing me to change my behavior. So see that I have a choice. For instance, I'm driving on motorway, speed limit is 120. For instance, I would love to ride more than 120. But which force you can simply resist? No, I'm not supposed to cross the limit, speed limit. Why? Because I have a sort of fear. If I cross the limit, obviously I have to pay the plenty. I have to pay fine. More possible, I can do some damages. So I need to be bit conscious. I am not supposed to do such things. You know why? Because I have a fear, I have unseen or seen pressure from an institution, from a structure. And what is the structure? The structure is a law enforcement agency. So according to positivist, we need to understand the structures, because structures are more important than individuals. You know why? Because individuals don't have their choice open. I mean, I can't do whatever I am thinking. You know why? Because I have unseen pressure, I have seen pressure from different institutions. I am teaching in an institution, for instance, so I need to observe, I need to act according to the rule and regulations which are there in the prospectus, or which are there in in a contract. When I signed a contract with the institution, so I have to abide by the law. So the thing is that contract, whatever you call it, I have to abide by. So the thing is, which is so easy to my point of view, is according to positivist, we need to understand structures, we need to understand institutions, because institutions always exert pressure, force people to work within their limitations. And whatever we talk about, see, when we talk about the pressure, same is the case with physics, chemistry, biology. Whatever we are doing in a lab, we are cut from our outer world. So we are in a system and we are bounding to a certain ambience, a certain atmosphere. So same is the case with the sociology. I mean, institution exert a pressure, seen, unseen, forces us to restrict our actions, through which we can work. So this is we have when we talk about the positivist approach. And in according to the positivist, I mean, this is the kind of thing very few sociologists simply believe, that it is important to study sociology at macro level. And when they are planning to study at macro level, only choice we have is the positivist approach. Just as natural scientists have observed the effect of the unseen forces such as gravity or electromagnetism, social structure are unseen forces whose effect can be observed by positivists using similar techniques to those of the natural sciences. So, what are the techniques? What are the things which are there in natural sciences? Is systematic observation, accurate testing, quantitative measurement that create reliable knowledge. This systematic process results in the development of theories that explain the initial observation and predict future behavior. So, according to positivists, there are certain things we need to observe, because when we talk about other natural sciences, there are systematic observation. Unless until you simply watch, you simply observe by your own eyes, it is not possible to believe. So, systematic observation is there. Then, accurate testing. What is accurate testing? See that whenever we talk about a testing or accurate testing, it is a kind of thing we need to cut ourselves off from the outer world. We need not to engage in an ambience which have certain influence, the outer influence, or the outer forces. The same is the case when we are observing something. For instance, we are trying to investigate some social issues, some social problems of society. So we need to restrict ourselves. We are not supposed to influence, not supposed to influence our political, our social biasness. So it means, according to a positivist approach, one can say that the researcher should avoid the biasness. There can be different kind of biasness. It's a political biasness, social biasness, personal biasness. So the accurate testing is only possible when we are devoid from all these kind of biasnesses. This systematic process results in the development of theories that explain the initial observation and predict the future behavior. Since the version of science is concerned only with what is rather than how we might want something to be, scientists must be personally objective. They do not participate in the behavior being studied, so they do not be biased or influence the data collection process. They prefer quantitative method because they allow for the collection of objective and reliable data. Positivists value reliability. They use it as essential that other can replicate the research. So, I mean, one of the prime thing which is involved in the positivist approach is, the researcher must be objective. The researcher approach must be objective because they don't put uh, themselves into the situation and just try to influence the situation by their own choices. That this is one of the things which should be avoided. One thing. Second thing is that, if they simply avoid biasness, then one can say that the data we collect is more reliable. More reliable. It means it can easily be replicated by other. questionnaire, structure interview, experiments, or comparative and observational studies offer high level of reliability than qualitative methods. They also allow the researchers to maintain a high level of personal objective by standing apart from the behavior being researched. Research method therefore should not depend on the subject interpretation of a researcher. The researcher is objective and their values do not influence the research. Positivists involve a value-free approach. So see that when we talk about the positivism, obviously the positivist approach more concerned about the data, statistical data. One can say it's all about the questionnaire, it's all about the interviews, it's the things which influence quantitative data. So positivist is more concerned about the data, about the structure, about the digits, about the values. You know why we can get values? Because it's all the time, it's easy to replicate, it is more reliable because it's all about the statistics. So in a nutshell, one can say that the positivist approach is all the time, I keep on saying within a minute or so, it's you need to test sociology like natural sciences. It's more like a systematic observation. You need to follow the same instructions which are followed in natural sciences. Thirdly, it's the study of society as macro level. You need to investigate society by understanding, by investigating, by examine the structure of the society. And what about the structures? They're all about the institutions. When we talk about the institutions, it's all about the unseen pressure, unseen forces, which is there just to give you a very fewer choice to act. It's all about action and reaction, but obviously you don't have that choices because there are certain institutions or the structure which bound you to be within your limitations. You should avoid biasness because you don't need to put yourself into the research by influencing yourself, influencing the respondent. So this is the kind of thing which is present in positivism. And the very best thing about the positivism is replicable, it's reliable, and it's value free. So what is the term value free? It's all about the ability of researchers to prevent their own values, such as personal, political, or religious values, from influencing their research. In summary, positivist methodology involves these key ideas. Primary research goal is to explain, not describe. Scientific research, it's all about the systematic observation, accurate testing, and quantitative measurement that create. It's all about the statistical data. The social scientist must personally be objective. So it means objective. You're not supposed to show prejudice or your personal beliefs, opinions, or biasness. Scientific research involves the ability to quantify and measure behavior. This is we have in the positivism. The second thing we have, just to understand the society, which is entirely different, or the alternative to the positivist approach, is interpretivism. For interpretivists, the crucial difference between society and the physical nature is that social reality is formed through the interaction of people who have consciousness. This awareness of ourselves and our relationship to others give us the ability to act. People are able to exercise free will over the choices they make about how to behave in different situations rather than simply react to outside structural stimulation. In this sense, people are unpredictable. They do not always react in the same way. This means that behavior cannot be studied and explained in the way that natural scientists study and explain the non-human world, and that the positivist approach is not appropriate for sociology. So, I mean, into an introduction to interpretivism, we need to understand a couple of things. The very first thing is we need to understand uh, it should not be studied. Society should not be studied like natural sciences. You know why? Because all the time we know gravitational acceleration is 9.8, or roughly you can say approximately 10 meter per second square. Values are fixed. Uh, there are so many things like pi is always 3.1415, blah blah blah, like that. So in natural sciences, all the time we have a fixed value. But see that according to sociologists, the sociologists who believe interpretivism is more valid, more appropriate, more important to study society. You know why? Because see that we have choices. I'm, you can say, educated person. I really know how to behave while I'm talking to a person which is who is illiterate. So my stance will be entirely different in a scenario. In a same scenario, if two illiterate people are are argumenting with each other, wrangling with each other, their stance will be entirely different. So it means in a same scenario, people act in a different way. It simply depends their class sometimes, their knowledge sometimes, their social status. There's so many factors which influence people to change their behavior in the same scenario. So once we do not have the exact outcome of a reaction and action theory, so one can say that it is not possible to have the reliable data by studying society with the help of positivist approach. So that is the reason most of the sociologists, they simply believe in interpretivism. So once they believe in interpretivism, we need to understand it's the micro level. What is the micro level? It's all about the interaction of people. We need to observe people. We need to know more about society at the minimum level. And what is the building block, the basic unit of society? The individuals. So if you try to investigate, try to understand what is society, sociology is all about, you need to study this subject, the society, at minimum level, micro level, the individuals, how individuals behave in a given situation, regardless. And secondly, the very thing which is parallel to positivism. See, in positivism, micro level; interpretivism, micro level. Positivism, again, it's a natural sciences. You need to study structures. Interpretivism, we do need to study structure rather than we need to study the behavior of individual. In positivism, we have unseen pressure, unseen forces. In interpretivism, we have free will. So it is my own choice, regardless I want to belong to a noble family or a specific social class. One can say that it is my choice to act to my free will. So these are the differences we have while we study positivism and interpretivism. So, the fact that people actively create the social world makes it impossible to establish casual relationship either in theory or in practice. Where social context define the meaning of behavior, the best a researcher can do is describe reality from the viewpoint of those who define it, whether they are in a classroom, a family, or any other social situation. Seeing the social world through the eyes of other involved empathy. Max Weber refers to this as Verstehen. So, according to Max Weber, we need to understand what is Verstehen is all about. Verstehen is all about, as I mentioned earlier, it's a German word which means to understand. So, it is important to understand the behavior of the people. When two or more than two people are interacting with each other, there must be some action, there must be some reaction. According to Newton, action and reaction is always equal in magnitude but opposite direction. But in sociology, one can say that this is not the perfect situation. Obviously, I like to be polite. It is not confirmed that I will get the same response to the person I am dealing with. Might be it's an outburst, a piercing reply. So this is what actually I need to convey to my viewers: is interpretivism is entirely different from positivism. It is more concerned about the individual's behavior, individual choice, free will, how they act in a certain behavior. And it is important to understand, what they are trying to reach. If researching social behavior involves understanding how people individually and collectively experience and interpret their situation, research method must reflect this social construction of reality. The aim of interpretivist research is to help respondent tell their story and by so doing understand and explain their behavioral choices. So it's all we have when we talk about the interpretivism. It's all about the behavioral choices. It simply depends. As I mentioned earlier, it's your choice. It simply believe how you react in a certain situation. But at the same time, there are certain factors which are there. It simply depends your age, your gender, your social status, your stance. How society believe on your status. So this is the kind of factors which really involve your behavior while you're uh, interacting with other people. We can summarize interpretivism methodology as follows. The primary aim is to describe social behavior in terms of meanings and interpretation of those involved. Behavior rules are context bound, they change in subtle way depending on the situation. Uncovering and describing behavioral rules involve the close study of people's behavior. Participation can be desirable because this gives the researcher a deeper insight into behavior. The kind of objective detachment valued by positivists is explicitly rejected. Sociologists should not be objective and should acknowledge their values rather than try to be value free in their research. While reliability is important, interpretivists place greater emphasis on achieving validity. So this is we have for today. It's all about we have positivism and interpretivism. The difference I try my level best to explain in the best way I have. Take great care of yourself and see you same channel with same person on a different time. Till then, fear man Allah.